The screen glowed in the dark office like a confession waiting to be heard. Ethan Cole's fingers hovered over the leather-bound journal, his heart hammering against his ribs. He shouldn't be reading this. He shouldn't even be holding it. But there it was, his name, written in Helena Ward's elegant handwriting, surrounded by words that made his entire world tilt on its axis. I dream about him. I shouldn't, but I do. The CEO he'd worked beside for 3 years, the woman who never let anyone close, had been writing about him, about wanting him, about needing him in ways that mirrored every forbidden thought he'd buried deep in his chest since the day they met. If you want to know how a single secret can shatter 2 lives and rebuild them into something neither person dared to imagine, stay with me until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The elevator doors slid open on the 42nd floor of Ward Industries at 10:47 p.m., and Ethan Cole stepped into the kind of silence that only existed in empty corporate towers after dark. His sneakers made no sound against the polished marble, a deliberate choice after the first time Helena Ward had looked up from her desk with irritation etched across her perfect features and said, "Do you always walk like you're trying to wake the dead?" He'd switched to soft-soled shoes the next day. 3 years of working as Helena Ward's executive assistant had taught Ethan many things. How she took her coffee, black, no sugar, precisely 175 degrees. The exact tone of voice that meant a meeting was about to go nuclear. The way her left eyebrow twitched when someone tried to bullshit her with corporate speak. And most importantly, how to be invisible when she needed space and indispensable when she needed support. What those 3 years hadn't taught him was how to stop thinking about her during his daughter's soccer practice, or how to ignore the way his pulse kicked up when Helena walked into a room, or how to kill the fantasies that ambushed him in the shower when he was supposed to be planning his daughter's lunch for the next day. Ethan was 32 years old, a single father, and completely, hopelessly in love with a woman who barely seemed to register his existence beyond his professional utility. The office was dark, except for the glow spilling from Helena's corner suite. She'd left 2 hours ago. He'd watched her walk to the private elevator, her charcoal suit impeccable despite the 14-hour workday, her expression as unreadable as always. But she'd been distracted during their final briefing, her attention drifting to the window overlooking the city rather than the acquisition reports he'd been summarizing. "I left something," she'd said when he'd asked if everything was all right. "I'll get it tomorrow." Except she'd called his cell 20 minutes ago, her voice tight with the kind of controlled panic he'd only heard once before, when the Malaysian deal had nearly collapsed. "Ethan, I need you to go back to the office. My desk. Bottom right drawer. There's a leather portfolio case. Bring it to me. Don't open it." The last 3 words had been delivered with enough force to make it clear this wasn't a request. It was a command backed by the full weight of her authority, which was why Ethan now stood in front of her massive glass desk, staring at the bottom right drawer, his hand on the chrome handle. "Don't open it." He pulled the drawer open. No portfolio case. Instead, he found the usual organized chaos. A slim silver laptop charger, a box of business cards, 2 expensive pens, a phone charging cable, and a leather-bound journal about the size of a hardcover novel. Ethan reached for his phone to call Helena back when something made him hesitate. The journal sat slightly askew, as if it had been grabbed in a hurry and replaced incorrectly. The leather was worn at the corners, the kind of wear that came from frequent handling. His phone buzzed. "Helena. Do you have it?" "There's no portfolio case here," Ethan said, scanning the drawer again. "Just some cables, pens, a journal." The sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line made his stomach drop. "The journal," Helena said, her voice strange, hollow. "Bring the journal. And Ethan?" The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, then at the journal. Helena never hung up without saying goodbye. She was pathologically professional, even when she was angry. Hanging up mid-sentence wasn't like her, unless she was rattled. He picked up the journal, registering its weight, the softness of the leather. Personal. This wasn't a work notebook filled with meeting notes and project timelines. This was something else entirely. "Don't open it." She hadn't said that about the journal. She'd said it about the portfolio case. This was different. This was... Ethan's thumb caught the edge of the cover, and before his rational mind could intervene, he was opening it to a random page in the middle. The handwriting was Helena's. He'd seen it on enough handwritten notes and contract amendments to recognize the elegant, precise script. March 15th. He stayed late tonight to help me prep for the Singapore presentation. I told him he should go home to Maya, that it was already past her bedtime, but he said she was at her grandmother's for the week and he'd rather be useful than sit in an empty apartment. Useful. As if that's all he is. When he brought me coffee at midnight, our fingers touched. Less than a second of contact. I felt it for an hour afterward. This is becoming dangerous. Ethan's heart stopped. He flipped back to the beginning of the journal, his hands suddenly unsteady. January 8th. New Year's resolution. Stop noticing the way Ethan's eyes crinkle when he smiles at his daughter's photos. Stop cataloging the moments when he pushes his hair back when he's concentrating. Stop wondering what it would feel like to be someone he looks at the way he looks at Maya, with complete, uncomplicated devotion. I'm 40 years old, a CEO. A woman who built an empire from nothing. I should be above this kind of adolescent fixation. But every morning when he walks into my office with the schedule and that easy smile, I feel like I'm 17 again, wanting something I can't have. The words blurred as Ethan's hands began to shake. He flipped forward, scanning pages, his breath coming faster. February 3rd. He wore the blue sweater today, the one that makes his eyes look impossibly warm. I assigned him 3 additional projects just to keep him in my office longer. I'm turning into a villain in my own life. February 22nd. Maya had the flu. He took 2 days off, the first time in 3 years he's ever called in sick. When he came back, he looked exhausted. I wanted to tell him to go home, to rest, to let me take care of things. Instead, I criticized his briefing on the Portland merger because I didn't know what else to do with the feeling in my chest. March 28th. He fell asleep on my couch during the late-night strategy session. I watched him for 20 minutes. His breathing deep and even, his face relaxed in a way it never is during the day. I could have woken him, should have. Instead, I sat there like a creep, memorizing the exact angle of his jawline, the way his hair falls across his forehead. When he finally woke up, he apologized. I told him it was fine. What I wanted to say was, stay, sleep here. Let me watch you like this every night for the rest of my life. I'm losing my mind. Ethan couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of professional distance, of Helena treating him with the same cool efficiency she treated everyone. 3 years of him carefully hiding every inappropriate feeling, every flash of attraction, every moment when he'd imagined what it might be like to close the distance between them and find out if her lips were as soft as they looked. And she'd been feeling the same thing. No, not the same thing. Reading her words, the raw honesty of them, Ethan realized Helena's feelings went deeper than attraction. This was longing. This was loneliness. This was a woman who'd built walls so high that even wanting someone felt like a catastrophic weakness. He flipped to the most recent entry, dated yesterday. May 17th, Damian Cross is back. I saw the preliminary filings this morning. He's mounting a hostile takeover attempt. After everything he did, after the lies he spread, after nearly destroying my reputation 6 years ago, he's coming for my company. And the worst part is, I can't focus on the threat. Because all I can think about is that when this gets ugly, and it will, Ethan is going to see me at my worst. Desperate, afraid, powerless. All the things I've spent my entire adult life making sure no one ever sees. I should fire him, send him away before the blast radius hits. But I'm too selfish, too weak. I need him here, even though it's the last thing he deserves, to be dragged through whatever fresh hell Damian has planned. I dream about him. I shouldn't, but I do. In those dreams, I'm not a CEO. I'm not a woman who's forgotten how to be vulnerable. I'm just someone who gets to love him, who gets to be part of his and Maya's life, who gets to come home to something real instead of this beautiful, empty penthouse where success echoes off the walls and reminds me exactly how alone I am. But dreams are just fantasies we have the dignity not to speak out loud. Ethan closed the journal with shaking hands. His phone buzzed again. Helena. He couldn't answer. Not yet. Not with his entire understanding of the last 3 years crumbling and reforming into something completely different. Every curt email, every impossible deadline, every moment when Helena had seemed cold or distant or unreachable. What if it had all been armor? What if she'd been fighting the same battle he'd been fighting, trying to maintain professionalism, while something deeper threatened to consume her. The phone stopped buzzing. Ethan looked around Helena's office, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the minimalist furniture that screamed expensive taste and zero personal warmth, the single photo on her desk of her receiving some industry award, surrounded by colleagues, smiling a smile that never reached her eyes. No family photos. No vacation snapshots. No evidence that Helena Ward existed outside this building. I'm just someone who gets to love him, who gets to be part of his and Maya's life. Maya, his 8-year-old daughter who asked him every few months why he didn't have a girlfriend, who'd once seen Helena at a company family day and whispered, "She's really pretty, Dad," and she smiled at me. "Does she smile a lot?" "Not really, sweetheart," he'd answered. "That's sad," Maya had said with the devastating simplicity of childhood. "Pretty people should smile more." Ethan's phone rang again. This time he answered. "I'm sorry," Helena said before he could speak. Her voice was raw in a way he'd never heard. "I'm so sorry. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Please don't read it. Just wait for me and I'll explain. And then you can quit or file a harassment complaint or whatever you need to do. But please, Ethan, please don't read it before I get there." "Helena, 20 minutes. I'm leaving now." The line went dead again. Ethan stood in the empty office, the journal in his hands, and realized he was holding the equivalent of a live grenade. Helena was on her way, probably breaking every traffic law in the city, terrified that he'd discovered her secret. But she was wrong about one thing. This wasn't harassment. This wasn't an abuse of power. This was a woman who'd been suffering in silence, wanting something she believed she could never have, while he'd been doing exactly the same thing. The elevator chimed. 17 minutes. She'd made it in 17 minutes. Ethan turned as Helena burst into the office, and the sight of her stopped his heart all over again. She'd clearly thrown on whatever was nearby, designer jeans, a white t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of the severe bun she wore during the day. No makeup, no armor, just Helena, breathing hard, her eyes wide with something that looked like panic. "Did you read it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan held up the journal. Helena's face crumbled. She actually stumbled, catching herself against her desk. "I can explain," she said, the words tumbling out fast and desperate. "It's not... I never acted on any of it. I never would. You're my employee, and I know how that looks, but I swear to you, Ethan, I have never done anything inappropriate. I needed somewhere to put the thoughts, and writing seemed safer than... Helena!" She stopped, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face in a way that made Ethan's entire body ache. He'd never seen her cry, never seen her anything but composed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'll accept your resignation effective immediately. Full severance, stellar recommendation, whatever you need. I'll never contact you again. Just please don't think I was trying to manipulate you or use my position to..." "Helena, stop." She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and what Ethan saw in her eyes made his decision simple. "I read it," he said quietly. "I read enough to understand." Helena's hand flew to her mouth. "I'll sell the company if I have to. Move away. You won't ever have to see me again. I'll make sure I'm in love with you." The words fell into the space between them like a bomb. Helena froze, her hand still pressed to her mouth, her eyes impossibly wide. "What?" Ethan took a step toward her, then another, until only the desk separated them. "I have been in love with you for 2 years, he said, his voice steady, despite the way his heart was trying to beat out of his chest. "Maybe longer. I stopped counting because it seemed pointless. You're my boss. You're brilliant and powerful and completely out of my league. I'm a single dad who rearranges your schedule and picks up your dry cleaning. I figured the best I could hope for was to keep my job and see you every day, even if it meant never telling you that every time you walk into a room, I forget how to breathe." Helena made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "That can't be true," she whispered. "It's true." Ethan moved around the desk, closing the distance between them. "When you criticized my Portland briefing in February, I went home and rewrote it 4 times because I couldn't stand the thought of disappointing you. When Maya had the flu, I called in sick because I was terrified you'd hear how worried I was in my voice and ask questions I couldn't answer. And when you fell asleep during the strategy session last month..." "You watched me," Helena breathed. I watched you, Ethan confirmed, and I thought about how different you look when you're not performing, when you're just you. And I wanted, his voice cracked. I wanted to be the person who got to see that version of you every day. Not just your assistant, not just the guy who manages your calendar, but someone who matters to you the way you matter to me. Helena was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. This is insane, she said. This can't be happening. Tell me you don't want it, Ethan said, taking the final step that brought them within touching distance. Tell me you wrote all of that, but you don't actually feel it, and I'll resign tomorrow. I'll disappear. But if you meant even half of what you wrote, Helena kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was 3 years of starvation finally ending, and Ethan wrapped his arms around her and kissed her back with everything he'd been holding inside. She tasted like salt from her tears and something sweeter underneath. And when she made a desperate sound against his mouth, Ethan felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked down tight for so long he'd forgotten it was there. Helena pulled back first, gasping, her hands fisted in his shirt. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably. I'm your boss. People will think I coerced you. Let them think it. I know the truth. Damien is coming after me, after the company. It's going to get ugly. Then let me help you fight. Helena searched his face, her expression raw and open in a way that made Ethan want to pull her close and never let go. Why? She whispered. Why would you want any part of this mess? Ethan reached up and brushed a tear from her cheek, marveling at the fact that he was allowed to touch her like this, that she wanted him to. Because mess is real, he said. And I've spent 3 years watching you be perfect and untouchable, and it was killing me. Not because I don't admire what you've built, but because I wanted to be someone who got to see behind the curtain. Someone who got to know the woman who writes about wanting simple things like coming home to someone who cares. You said you dream about being part of Maya's and my life. He paused, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. We dream about you too. Helena's breath hitched. Maya? She asked me why I don't date. I told her I was too busy. She said that was sad because everyone deserves someone who makes them smile. Ethan smiled despite the seriousness of the moment. She's 8. She's also right. Helena laughed, the sound wet and broken and beautiful. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I've spent so long being alone, being in control. I don't know how to let someone in. Good thing I'm patient, Ethan said. I've waited 3 years. I can wait longer. What if I'm bad at it? What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure it out together. He leaned his forehead against hers, breathing her in. Helena, I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for real. Whatever that looks like for us. She closed her eyes, and for a long moment they just stood there, breathing in sync, the journal still sitting on the desk like evidence of everything they'd been too afraid to say out loud. Damien is going to destroy me, Helena finally said, her voice quiet but steady. He's going to dig up every piece of dirt he can find, twist every relationship, question every decision I've ever made. And when he finds out about us, she opened her eyes, meeting Ethan's gaze. He will use it as ammunition. He'll say I'm sleeping with my assistant, that I'm unprofessional, that I can't be trusted to run a company if I can't even maintain appropriate workplace boundaries. Then we'll prove him wrong. How? Ethan thought about the journal, about all the entries documenting Helena's careful distance, her refusal to act on her feelings, her guilt over even having them. By showing everyone who you really are, he said, not the ice queen they think they know, the woman who built this company from nothing, who fights for what's right, who's so terrified of hurting people that she spent 3 years suffering alone rather than risk making me uncomfortable. But he squeezed her hand. That's the woman I fell in love with. And that's the woman who's going to beat Damien Cross. Helena studied him for a long moment, and Ethan could see her mind working, cataloging risks, calculating odds, trying to find the logical path through the chaos. Then she did something that surprised him. She stopped thinking and just felt. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we'll do this together. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and Helena buried her face against his chest, her body finally relaxing into his embrace. They stood like that for a long time, two people who'd been alone for too long finally finding their way home. When Helena finally pulled back, her eyes were clearer, her expression more settled. "We need a plan," she said, and Ethan heard the CEO returning, not to push him away, but to face the battle ahead. Damien filed preliminary paperwork for a hostile takeover. He's going to start reaching out to board members, shareholders, anyone with influence. He'll offer them money, promises, whatever it takes to turn them against me. "What's his angle?" Ethan asked, shifting smoothly into work mode even as his hand stayed wrapped around hers. "He tried to destroy you 6 years ago and failed. Why come back now?" Helena's jaw tightened. "Because 6 years ago, I made him look like a fool. I exposed his accounting fraud, his embezzlement scheme, everything. He went to prison for 3 years, got out on parole last year." She met Ethan's eyes. "This isn't about business. This is about revenge." "Then we need to be smarter than him." "He's already smarter than you think." Helena moved to her computer, pulling up a series of files. "Look at this. He's been laying groundwork for months. Shell companies, proxy investors, media contacts. He's not just coming for the company. He's coming for my reputation, my credibility, everything." Ethan leaned over her shoulder, scanning the documents, his mind racing. "He can't do this alone," he said. "Someone's backing him. Someone with serious money and serious connections." "I know." Helena pulled up another file, a list of names. "These are the board members most likely to flip. Marcus Chen, who's always resented that I didn't promote him to CFO. Jennifer Walsh, who thinks I'm too aggressive with expansion. Robert Price, who's been quietly shorting our stock for the last 6 months. You've been tracking this. Since the day I saw Damien's name on the initial filings." Helena looked at him. "I've been preparing to fight this battle alone. I didn't think—" She stopped. "I didn't think anyone would want to stand with me." Ethan turned her chair to face him, crouching down so they were eye level. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. "We're going to beat him, together. But first we need to figure out who's bankrolling him." Helena's eyes sharpened. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that someone like Damien, fresh out of prison, doesn't have the capital to mount a hostile takeover of a billion-dollar company, which means he's got a silent partner, someone who wants you gone as much as he does. A competitor. Or someone inside the company." Ethan stood pacing. "We need to dig into the financials, find the connection, follow the money until we figure out who's really pulling the strings." Helena watched him, something like wonder crossing her face. "What?" Ethan asked. "You," she said softly. 3 years of watching you manage my schedule and handle logistics, and I never realized you think like this, strategic, several moves ahead." Ethan smiled slightly. "You hired me because I had an MBA and experience in corporate strategy. Then you spent 3 years having me book your travel and order lunch. I figured you didn't need that part of me." "I was an idiot," Helena said. "You were scared," Ethan corrected gently. "Of this. Of us. Of wanting something that felt dangerous." She nodded slowly. "I still am. Scared, I mean." "Me too." He held out his hand. "But we're doing it anyway." Helena took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. "Tomorrow, I'll start digging into Damien's financial backing," Ethan said. "Tonight," he hesitated, "I should go home. Maya's with my mom, but I need to pick her up in the morning, and we should probably talk about how we're going to handle this. The timing, the optics, all of it." Helena's face fell slightly, and Ethan realized she'd been hoping he'd stay. "Or," he said quickly, "you could come with me. Meet Maya properly, not as my boss, but as—" He paused, suddenly uncertain. "As someone who matters to me, if you want." Helena's eyes widened. "You want me to meet your daughter? Now?" "Eventually I want you to meet her. But yeah, if you're ready, why wait?" Ethan squeezed her hand. "Unless you're not ready. That's okay too. There's no timeline here." Helena looked down at their joined hands, then back up at him. "I'm terrified of screwing this up," she admitted. "I don't know how to be around kids. I don't know what to say, or how to act, or—" "Just be yourself," Ethan said. "The real you. The one who writes in journals and dreams about simple things. That's the person Maya needs to meet, not the CEO." Helena took a shaky breath, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Let's go meet your daughter." They gathered their things in silence, the journal carefully tucked into Helena's bag. As they walked to the elevator, Ethan felt the weight of what they were doing settling over him. Not just the relationship, but the battle ahead. Damien Cross was coming for Helena with everything he had, and now Ethan was stepping directly into the line of fire. But as Helena's hand slipped into his in the empty elevator, Ethan knew he'd made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth everything. The elevator descended, carrying them away from the corporate world and towards something infinitely more dangerous and infinitely more real. And neither of them looked back. The drive to Ethan's apartment took 23 minutes through late-night traffic, and Helena spent every second of it gripping the leather journal in her lap like a lifeline. She'd ridden in the back of town cars and limousines thousands of times, but sitting in the passenger seat of Ethan's modest sedan felt surreal, intimate in a way that made her hyper-aware of every breath, every movement, every small space between them. "You're thinking too hard," Ethan said, his voice cutting through her spiraling thoughts. Helena glanced at him, taking in the relaxed set of his shoulders, the easy way he navigated the streets. He'd rolled up his sleeves, and she found herself staring at his forearms. The definition of muscle, the dusting of hair, the capable hands that had held her less than an hour ago. "I'm always thinking," she said. "I know, but right now, you're catastrophizing." He reached over and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "Maya is 8. She likes unicorns, hates broccoli, and thinks anyone who's nice to me is automatically cool. You'll be fine." "What if she doesn't like me?" "She will." "You can't know that." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Helena, breathe. This isn't a board meeting. There's no performance review. Just be present. That's all she needs." Helena wanted to argue, to list all the ways this could go wrong, but the certainty in Ethan's voice made her pause. He believed this would work. He believed she could do this. The question was whether she believed it herself. They pulled into a modest apartment complex in a quiet neighborhood, and Helena's stomach twisted as Ethan parked. The building was older but well-maintained, with small balconies and flower boxes under the windows. Nothing like her sterile penthouse downtown, where every surface gleamed and nothing ever felt lived in. "This is home," Ethan said, killing the engine. He looked at her, his expression gentle. "Last chance to bail if you're not ready." Helena thought about the journal in her lap, about all the entries documenting her loneliness, her longing for something real. She thought about the empty penthouse waiting for her, the 2 quiet nights, the years of choosing safety over risk. "I'm ready," she said. They took the elevator to the 3rd floor, and Helena's heart hammered as Ethan unlocked his door. The apartment was small, maybe 1,000 square feet, but the moment they stepped inside, Helena felt something shift in her chest. It was alive. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A half-finished puzzle sat on the coffee table. Books were stacked on shelves alongside framed photos. Maya at various ages, Ethan and Maya at the beach, a photo of an older woman Helena assumed was Ethan's mother. The furniture was comfortable rather than expensive, the kind of space designed for living rather than impressing. "She's asleep," Ethan said quietly, nodding toward a closed door down the hall. "But I want you to see something." He led Helena to Maya's room and carefully opened the door just enough to let the hallway light spill in. Helena stepped forward and looked inside. The room was painted pale purple, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Maya was curled up in her bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one arm wrapped around a stuffed elephant. She looked peaceful, completely safe, and Helena felt something crack open in her chest. This was Ethan's world, this beautiful, ordinary, perfect world, where bedtime stories mattered more than board meetings, and the most important thing was making sure a little girl felt loved. Ethan gently closed the door and led Helena back to the living room. "Coffee?" he asked. "Please." While Ethan moved around the small kitchen, Helena wandered to the bookshelf, studying the photos. There were pictures of Maya as a baby, as a toddler, each stage of her childhood carefully documented. But there were no photos of another woman, no wedding pictures, no evidence of Maya's mother. "She left when Maya was 6 months old," Ethan said quietly, and Helena turned to find him watching her. Said she wasn't ready to be a mother, wasn't ready for any of it. She signed over full custody and moved to Seattle, sends a birthday card every year. That's it. Helena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Maya doesn't remember her, and honestly, we're better off. He poured 2 cups of coffee and brought them over, handing one to Helena. It was hard at first, figuring out how to be both parents. But my mom helped, and eventually I found my rhythm. Maya and I, we're a team. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Ethan sat on the couch, and Helena joined him, careful to leave space between them, even though her entire body wanted to close that gap. The day she was born, I looked at her and knew nothing else mattered. Not my career ambitions, not the plans I'd made, nothing. Just making sure she grew up knowing she was wanted, loved, safe. Helena set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. I don't know how to be that person. What person? The kind who knows how to love like that, unconditionally, without walls. She looked at him, her eyes burning. I've spent my entire adult life building defenses, making sure no one could hurt me, and I got so good at it that I forgot how to let anyone in, even when I wanted to. Ethan set down his own cup and turned to face her fully. Helena, you wrote an entire journal about wanting to be part of our lives, about dreaming of coming home to something real. That's not someone who doesn't know how to love. That's someone who's been afraid to try. What's the difference? The difference is that fear can be overcome. Inability can't. He reached for her hand. You don't have to be perfect at this. You just have to be willing to show up, to try. The rest, we'll figure out together. Helena looked down at their joined hands, marveling at how natural it felt. How right. I've never introduced anyone to Maya, Ethan continued. In 8 years, I've never brought a woman home, because I knew that whoever I brought into our lives had to be someone worth the risk, someone who would stay, someone who would understand that loving me means loving her too. That's a lot of pressure, Helena whispered. I know, but I also know you're strong enough to handle it. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. You didn't build a billion-dollar company by running from challenges. You built it by facing them head-on. This is just a different kind of challenge. Helena wanted to argue, to list all the ways business was different from relationships, but before she could speak, a small voice cut through the quiet. Daddy? They both turned to find Maya standing in the hallway, rubbing her eyes, her elephant tucked under one arm. She was wearing pajamas covered in stars, and her hair was a mess, and Helena's heart stopped at the sight of her. Hey, sweetheart, Ethan said gently. What are you doing up? I heard voices. Maya's gaze shifted to Helena, her eyes widening. You're the pretty lady from the company day. Helena's breath caught. Maya remembered her from 2 years ago? I am, Helena managed, her voice steadier than she felt. My name is Helena. Maya patted closer, studying Helena with the unselfconscious curiosity of childhood. You're really pretty. Are you Daddy's friend? Ethan glanced at Helena, leaving the answer to her. Helena thought about all the ways she could deflect, could keep her distance, could maintain the walls that had protected her for so long. Then she thought about the journal, about every word she'd written documenting her loneliness, her longing for exactly this kind of moment. I'd like to be, Helena said softly. If that's okay with you. Maya's face broke into a smile that made Helena's chest ache. That's okay. Daddy doesn't have a lot of friends. He's always working. Maya, Ethan said, a note of fond exasperation in his voice. Well, you are, Maya said matter-of-factly. She climbed onto the couch between them, settling in like this was perfectly normal. Are you the boss lady Daddy talks to on the phone all the time? Helena's eyes cut to Ethan, who had the grace to look sheepish. Yes, Helena said. I am. Do you make him work a lot? Sometimes, but your daddy is very good at his job. Maya nodded seriously. He's good at everything, except making pancakes. His pancakes are lumpy. Ethan laughed, the sound warm and unguarded in a way Helena had never heard at the office. Thanks for that, kiddo. Maya leaned against her father's side, her eyes starting to droop again. Helena, do you like unicorns? The question was so unexpected that Helena blinked. I've never thought about it. You should think about it. Unicorns are important. Maya yawned. If you're Daddy's friend, you should come to my soccer game next week. We're playing the Blue Dolphins. I'm on the Purple Panthers. Helena's throat tightened. I'd like that. Okay, good. Maya's eyes closed fully. Daddy, I'm sleepy. I can see that. Ethan scooped her up with practiced ease. Let's get you back to bed. As he carried Maya down the hall, Helena heard their quiet conversation. I like her, Daddy. Yeah? Yeah. She has kind eyes, and she didn't talk to me like I'm a baby. She is pretty special. Are you going to marry her? Ethan's laugh was soft and slightly strangled. It's way too early for that question, sweetheart. But do you like her? Like her? Yes, I like her. Good. Because you get sad sometimes when you think I'm not looking, and I don't want you to be sad. Helena pressed her hand to her mouth, tears blurring her vision. This child, this beautiful, perceptive child, had been worrying about her father's happiness, had been hoping for exactly this. When Ethan returned, he found Helena standing by the window, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. Hey, he said softly, crossing to her. What's wrong? Helena turned to him, and the expression on her face made Ethan's breath catch. It wasn't sadness, it was something bigger, something that looked like hope, mixed with fear, mixed with longing. She's perfect, Helena whispered, and you're perfect, and I'm terrified I'm going to ruin this. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and Helena let herself break down in a way she hadn't allowed herself to in years. All the loneliness, all the fear, all the years of wanting something she thought she could never have. It poured out of her in shaking sobs while Ethan held her and stroked her hair and murmured quiet reassurances against her temple. You're not going to ruin anything, he said firmly. You're going to show up, you're going to try, and you're going to let us love you. That's all I'm asking. Helena pulled back enough to look at him, her face wet with tears. I don't know how to do this. The corporate world, I understand. Strategy, negotiations, power dynamics. I can navigate all of that. But this? Being vulnerable? Being part of someone's life in a way that matters? I've never done this before. Neither have I, Ethan said. Not like this. Not with someone I care about this much. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. We're both going into this blind, but we're doing it together. That has to count for something. Helena closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. What if Damien destroys everything? What if fighting him costs you your job, your reputation, your stability? Maya needs security. She needs to see that her father doesn't run from things that matter, Ethan interrupted. That when someone he loves is in trouble, he stands with them. That's the lesson I want to teach her. Not that safety is the most important thing, but that courage is. Helena opened her eyes, studying his face. You really believe we can beat him? I really believe that together we can handle whatever he throws at us. Ethan smiled slightly. Besides, you're forgetting something important. What? You're Helena Ward. You built an empire from nothing. You faced down competitors, survived market crashes, and turned this company into something that matters. Damien Cross is just another obstacle. He leaned his forehead against hers. And now he's up against both of us. I almost feel sorry for him. Helena laughed despite herself, the sound watery but genuine. You have a lot of faith in me. I have the exact amount of faith you deserve. He kissed her forehead. Now, it's almost 1 a.m, and we both need sleep. You should stay. Take the guest room. In the morning, we'll have breakfast with Maya, and then we'll start planning our counterattack against Damien. Helena wanted to argue, to say she should go home, maintain some distance, but the truth was she didn't want to leave. Didn't want to go back to her empty penthouse where success echoed off the walls and reminded her how alone she'd been. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Ethan showed her to the guest room, small but comfortable, with clean sheets and a pile of books on the nightstand. After he left, Helena sat on the edge of the bed and opened her journal to a blank page. May 18th, 1:47 a.m. I'm writing this from Ethan's guest room. Down the hall, Maya is sleeping peacefully, and Ethan is probably doing the same. And I'm here, in their home, no longer just a fantasy I wrote about in private moments. I met Maya tonight. She asked if I liked unicorns and invited me to her soccer game. She said I had kind eyes, and I realized I've spent my whole life building things that last. Buildings, companies, legacy. But I've never built anything that felt like this. Like warmth, like home. Ethan said I don't have to be perfect. I just have to show up. I hope he's right, because I want this so badly it terrifies me. Tomorrow we start fighting back against Damien. But tonight, I'm allowing myself to feel something I haven't felt in years. Hope. She closed the journal and set it aside, then lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in the apartment, she could hear the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic. Normal sounds. Life sounds. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Helena fell asleep feeling like she belonged somewhere. Morning came too quickly, sunlight streaming through the guest room window. Helena woke to the smell of coffee and something burning, followed by Maya's delighted laughter and Ethan's rueful voice saying, "Okay, pancakes are officially canceled. How do you feel about cereal?" Helena smiled despite her exhaustion and made her way to the bathroom, studying her reflection. She looked different somehow, softer around the edges, like some of the armor had fallen away during the night. When she emerged, she found the kitchen in cheerful chaos. Ethan was pouring cereal while Maya set the table, chattering about her upcoming soccer game and her friend Sophia's new puppy. "Good morning," Helena said from the doorway. Maya looked up and beamed. "Helena, Daddy tried to make pancakes again. They turned into hockey pucks." "I heard," Helena said, moving into the kitchen. "Maybe I can help next time." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You cook?" "I attended Le Cordon Bleu for a summer during college," Helena said, then caught herself. "That sounded pretentious? Sorry. Yes, I can cook. I just haven't in years." "That's so cool." Maya bounced in her seat. "Can you teach Daddy? His cooking is really bad." "I'm standing right here," Ethan said, but he was smiling. They ate breakfast together, and Helena marveled at the easy rhythm of it. Maya's endless questions, Ethan's patient answers, the comfortable domesticity that came from years of practice. She contributed where she could, answering Maya's questions about what it was like to run a company, mostly boring meetings, and whether she had any pets. "No, but I've always wanted a cat." After breakfast, Ethan took Maya to get dressed, and Helena helped clear the table. She was loading the dishwasher when her phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was Damien Cross. Helena's blood ran cold as she opened it. "Helena, I hope you've had time to review my proposal. I'm prepared to offer generous severance packages to the executive team if you step down peacefully. If you choose to fight this, I will be forced to make public certain information about your personal conduct that I believe the board and your shareholders would find quite interesting. I've always admired your intelligence. I hope you'll make the smart choice. Best regards." Damien Helena's hands shook as she read it again. The threat was clear. He had something on her, or thought he did, and he was prepared to use it. "Helena?" She turned to find Ethan watching her, concern etched across his face. "What is it?" She handed him the phone silently. Ethan's expression darkened as he read. "He's bluffing." "Is he? Because if he's been digging into my life, if he's found out about us..." Helena's voice cracked. "I kept that journal at the office, Ethan. What if he has access to my office? What if he's read it?" "Then we deal with it," Ethan said firmly. "But Helena, even if he did, so what? You documented your feelings in a private journal. You never acted inappropriately. There's nothing there that proves misconduct. The optics are that you're a human being who developed feelings for someone while maintaining perfect professionalism for 3 years. Anyone who tries to crucify you for that is reaching." He set the phone down and took her hands. This is exactly what Damien wants. He wants you scared, off balance, making decisions from a place of fear instead of strategy. Helena took a shaky breath. "You're right. I know you're right. But the thought of that journal becoming public, of people reading my private thoughts, won't happen because we're going to be smarter than him." Ethan's eyes were sharp now, strategic. "We need to go on offense. Stop reacting to his moves and make some of our own." "Like what?" "Like finding out who's backing him and exposing them before they can expose us." Ethan grabbed his laptop from the counter. "I have some contacts in corporate intelligence, people who owe me favors." Let me make some calls. Over the next 3 hours, while Maya watched cartoons in the living room, Ethan and Helena worked at the kitchen table, building their counterattack. Ethan reached out to former colleagues, called in favors, and started pulling threads on Damien's financial backing. Helena worked her own network, making discreet calls to board members, gauging loyalty, shoring up support. By noon, they had their first real lead. I found something, Ethan said, spinning his laptop toward Helena. Look at this. 3 months ago, a shell corporation called Meridian Holdings purchased 15% of Ward Industries stock. It was done quietly, through multiple smaller transactions designed to stay under the radar. Helena leaned in, scanning the documents. Who owns Meridian Holdings? That's where it gets interesting. The CEO is listed as Richard Vance. Helena's face went pale. Richard Vance, as in my former CFO, Richard Vance? The one I fired 4 years ago for insider trading? The same. Ethan pulled up more documents. He and Damien were cellmates for 8 months. They got out around the same time, and now they're working together to take you down. Helena sat back, her mind racing. Richard knows everything about the company's vulnerabilities, financial structures, board dynamics, shareholder relationships. If he's feeding that information to Damien, they have a blueprint for exactly how to destroy you, Ethan finished. But here's the thing. Richard is sloppy, always has been. I'm betting if we dig deep enough, we'll find evidence of fraud in how Meridian Holdings was structured. And if we can prove he and Damien are coordinating this attack illegally, we can get them both arrested before they can execute their plan. Helena felt a surge of something that felt like hope. We need someone with forensic accounting experience, someone who can trace the money without leaving footprints. I know someone, Ethan said. Christina Park. She used to work for the SEC before going private. She's discreet, brilliant, and she hates corporate fraud with a passion. Can you get her on this today? Already texting her. Helena watched him work, marveling at the transformation. This wasn't her assistant managing her schedule. This was a strategist, a fighter, someone who understood corporate warfare as well as she did. Maybe better in some ways because he wasn't hamstrung by the same fear of exposure that had kept her defensive for years. Maya wandered into the kitchen, looking between them curiously. Are you guys doing work stuff? Something like that, Ethan said, ruffling her hair. How would you feel about spending the afternoon with Grandma? Helena and I need to take care of some things. Maya's face fell slightly. But I wanted to hang out with Helena more. Helena's heart clenched at the disappointment in the little girl's voice. She knelt down to Maya's level. I want to hang out with you too, but your dad and I have to handle something important right now. How about this? When we're done, I'll come to your soccer game next week like you asked. And maybe afterward, if it's okay with your dad, we can all get ice cream together. Maya's face brightened. Really? You promise? I promise. Okay. Maya threw her arms around Helena's neck in an impulsive hug that made Helena freeze for a second before carefully hugging her back. When Maya pulled away, she looked up at Helena seriously. You're going to make sure Daddy's okay, right? He gets stressed sometimes and forgets to eat lunch. Helena glanced at Ethan, who looked equal parts embarrassed and touched. I'll make sure he eats lunch, Helena said solemnly. Good. Maya nodded with satisfaction, then skipped off to pack her overnight bag. After Ethan dropped Maya at his mother's house, he and Helena headed downtown to meet with Christina Park. The forensic accountant worked out of a small office in the financial district, surrounded by computers and filing cabinets that looked like they'd survived several decades. Christina was in her 50s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of efficient demeanor that suggested she didn't waste time on pleasantries. Ethan Cole, she said, shaking his hand. Haven't heard from you in 3 years. Must be serious. It is. Ethan introduced Helena. This is Helena Ward, CEO of Ward Industries. Christina's eyebrows rose. The Helena Ward, this really is serious. She gestured them to chairs. Talk to me. Helena laid out the situation. Damien's hostile takeover attempt, Richard Vance's involvement, the threatening email. Christina listened without interrupting, making notes on a legal pad. So you need me to prove they're coordinating illegally, Christina said when Helena finished. And you need it fast enough to stop whatever they're planning. Exactly, Helena said. Christina was quiet for a moment, studying them both. This is going to be expensive and messy. If I dig into Meridian Holdings and find what we're looking for, there's a good chance Damien and Richard will know someone's onto them. They might accelerate their timeline. Then we'll be ready, Ethan said. Christina looked at Helena. You understand that once I start pulling this thread, there's no going back. If they've buried evidence of fraud, and I find it, we're talking federal charges. Prison time. This won't just stop a hostile takeover, it'll destroy them. Good, Helena said, her voice hard. They destroyed themselves the moment they decided to come after my company. I'm just making sure there are consequences. Christina smiled slightly. I like you. Okay, I'll need access to all financial records related to the stock purchases, any communication you've had with Damien or Richard, and a list of board members who might be cooperating with them. You'll have everything by tonight, Helena said. Then I'll have preliminary findings by Monday morning. If there's fraud, I'll find it. As they left Christina's office, Ethan took Helena's hand. You okay? I feel like we're actually doing something instead of just waiting for the next attack, Helena said. So, yes, I'm okay. They spent the rest of the afternoon at Helena's office, compiling documents for Christina. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ethan ordered dinner from Helena's favorite Thai place, something he knew without asking, the way he knew everything about her preferences after 3 years of working together. Tell me something, Helena said as they ate pad thai straight from the containers at her conference table. When did you figure out you had feelings for me? Ethan paused, considering. Honestly, the first week I worked here. You were in a meeting with a potential investor who kept interrupting you, talking over you, explaining your own company back to you like you were an idiot. You let him go on for about 10 minutes. Then you pulled out a presentation that systematically dismantled every assumption he'd made and proved he hadn't done even basic due diligence on the industry. He smiled at the memory. The way you stayed calm while completely eviscerating his arguments, I'd never seen anything like it. I went home that night and couldn't stop thinking about you. Helena felt heat rise in her cheeks. That was the Patterson deal. He tried to lowball me by 40%. You got him up to market rate plus a premium, Ethan said. It was beautiful to watch. But it was more than that. It was the way you treated people after. The investor you were ruthless with. But your team, you made sure everyone who'd worked on the presentation got credit, sent personal thank you notes. I realized you weren't just brilliant, you were decent. And that combination... He shook his head. I was gone. Helena set down her chopsticks, her throat tight. I wrote about that night in my journal, the Patterson meeting. I wrote about how you stayed late to help me prep, and how you somehow knew I'd need coffee at exactly the right moment, and how when you smiled at me after we closed the deal, I felt it in my chest like a physical thing. I remember that smile, Ethan said softly. You tried to hide it, went all professional again immediately. But for just a second, you looked happy, genuinely happy. I would have done anything to see that expression again. They stared at each other across the table, and Helena felt the weight of 3 years of longing settling between them like a living thing. We should finish eating, she said, her voice unsteady. We still have work to do. But neither of them moved. Ethan stood first, circling the table until he was standing beside her chair. Helena looked up at him, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. I spent 3 years hiding how I felt, he said quietly, pretending every moment with you was just professional, just work. And now that I don't have to hide anymore, he cupped her face in his hands. I don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't want this. Want you. Helena rose from her chair, closing the distance between them. Then don't. The kiss was different from the night before, less desperate, more deliberate. Ethan kissed her like he had all the time in the world to learn the shape of her mouth, the taste of her, the way she made soft sounds when his hands slid into her hair. Helena melted into him, letting herself feel everything she'd been denying for years. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Helena rested her forehead against his chest. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to be with someone. How to let down my guard. Then don't, Ethan said, tilting her chin up. Not all at once. Just let me in a little bit at a time. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Helena nodded, blinking back tears. Okay. They finished dinner and worked until nearly midnight, building the case against Damien and Richard. By the time Ethan drove Helena back to her penthouse, they had a plan, not just for the corporate battle ahead, but for how to navigate this new reality where they were no longer boss and assistant, but something infinitely more complicated and infinitely more real. "I'll see you Monday," Ethan said as they stood in her building's lobby. "Monday," Helena echoed. Then before she could second-guess herself, she pulled him into another kiss, brief but full of promise. As she rode the elevator up to her penthouse, Helena opened her journal to write one final entry for the night. May 18th, 11:53 p.m. Today I met Maya, had breakfast in Ethan's kitchen, started building a plan to save my company, and kissed the man I've been in love with for 3 years like I had every right to. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing to be vulnerable, to risk everything for something real. And I'm terrified, but I'm also more alive than I've felt in years. Tomorrow, the real battle begins. But tonight, I'm allowing myself to believe we can win. Not just against Damien, but for us. For this fragile, beautiful thing we're building together. She closed the journal and looked out at the city lights, and for once, her penthouse didn't feel quite so empty. Because now she had something to come home to. Monday morning arrived like a thunderclap. Helena was in her office by 6, reviewing Christina Park's preliminary findings for the 3rd time, her coffee growing cold as she absorbed the implications of what the forensic accountant had uncovered over the weekend. It was worse than she'd thought. Christina's report detailed a sophisticated web of shell companies, offshore accounts, and falsified investment records that traced back not just to Richard Vance and Damien Cross, but to 2 of Helena's own board members, Marcus Chen and Robert Price. The conspiracy was deeper and more organized than a simple hostile takeover. This was a coordinated attack designed to strip Ward Industries of its assets while destroying Helena's reputation in the process. They've been planning this for over a year, Christina had told her during their Sunday night call. Maybe longer. The financial structures are too complex to have been thrown together recently. Someone's been feeding them inside information for months. Helena's hands tightened on the report as she read the most damaging section. Meridian Holdings had been systematically purchasing Ward Industries stock using fraudulent loan applications and fabricated investor credentials. If the SEC got wind of this before Helena could control the narrative, the scandal could tank her company's stock price and trigger a federal investigation that would paralyze operations for months. She needed to move fast. The door to her office opened, and Ethan walked in carrying 2 cups of fresh coffee and a determined expression that made Helena's chest tighten with something that felt like gratitude and desire tangled together. "You're here early," she said. "So are you." He set one of the coffees in front of her and took the seat across from her desk, the same seat he'd occupied 1,000 times before, but now everything felt different, charged. "I've been thinking about Christina's report all weekend. We need to move on this today." "Agreed, but we need to be strategic about how we do it." Helena pulled up a document on her computer. "I've drafted a letter to the SEC detailing the fraud. If we file it this morning, the investigation starts immediately. Damien and Richard won't be able to move forward with the takeover while they're under federal scrutiny." Ethan studied the letter, his expression thoughtful. "That stops the immediate threat, but it also puts us in reactive mode. The media will have a field day with this, CEO's company targeted by fraud scheme. Every article will focus on how you were almost taken down, not on how you fought back. What are you suggesting?" "We don't just report the fraud, we expose it ourselves. Hold a press conference, show the evidence, control the narrative from the beginning." His eyes met hers. "You're not a victim in this story, Helena. You're the one who uncovered a massive conspiracy and brought it to justice. That's the headline we want." Helena felt something spark in her chest. He was right. She'd spent so many years being cautious, protecting herself, playing defense. But defense didn't win wars. A press conference means going public about the relationship between Damien, Richard, and the board members, she said slowly. It means accusing powerful people of serious crimes. If we're wrong about any of it, we're not wrong. Christina's evidence is ironclad. And more importantly, going public means they can't use your personal life against you. If we control the story, we control the optics. Ethan leaned forward. "Right now, Damien thinks he has leverage over you. He thinks you'll back down to avoid scrutiny. We show him he's wrong." Helena was quiet for a moment, weighing the risk. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that had made hardened investors nervous across boardroom tables for years. Set it up for tomorrow morning. I want every major financial outlet there. And get our legal team on standby. We're going to need them. Already done, Ethan said, pulling out his phone to show her the calendar invite he'd drafted. I figured you'd go for it. You know me too well. I'm counting on it. He stood, then hesitated. Helena, once we do this, there's no going back. Damien and Richard will retaliate. It's going to get ugly. Let it get ugly. I'm done hiding. She stood as well, moving around the desk until she was close enough to touch him. You were right about something else, too. I'm not a victim, and I'm tired of acting like I have something to be ashamed of. Ethan's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing with the ease of practice despite this being so new. For the record, I'm really proud of you right now. Don't be proud yet. We haven't won anything. We will. The confidence in his voice steadied something in Helena's chest. She'd fought corporate battles alone for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone in her corner. Someone who believed in her not because of what she'd built, but because of who she was. The intercom on her desk buzzed. Her assistant's voice crackled through. Miss Ward, Marcus Chen is here to see you. He says it's urgent. Helena and Ethan exchanged glances. Marcus Chen, one of the board members Christina's report had implicated in the conspiracy. Send him in, Helena said, her voice steady. Ethan moved to leave, but Helena caught his arm. Stay. I want you here for this. Marcus Chen walked into the office looking every inch the senior executive, tailored suit, confident stride, the kind of presence that commanded attention. But Helena noticed the tightness around his eyes, the way his gaze flickered to Ethan before settling on her. Helena, Marcus said, we need to talk. Then talk. Marcus glanced at Ethan again. In private. Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Ethan. He's my executive assistant and my most trusted advisor. Helena sat on the edge of her desk, her posture deliberately casual. What's this about, Marcus? Marcus's jaw tightened. I'm going to be direct. I know you've been digging into the Meridian Holdings stock purchases. I know you've hired a forensic accountant, and I'm here to tell you that you're making a mistake. Am I? Damien Cross has evidence that you've been engaging in an inappropriate relationship with your assistant. Marcus's eyes cut to Ethan. He has journal entries, personal writings that detail a pattern of unprofessional conduct. If you pursue this investigation, he's prepared to make those writings public and file a formal complaint with the board. Helena felt ice slide down her spine, but she kept her expression neutral. I see. And how did Damien get access to my private journal? Does it matter? The point is, he has it, and if you don't step down quietly, he'll use it to destroy your reputation. Ethan stepped forward, his voice deadly calm. That journal was stolen from this office, which means Damien committed corporate espionage and theft, which means any evidence obtained through it is inadmissible and illegal. Marcus's smile was thin. Good luck proving that. Damien will claim he received it from a concerned employee who found it in a common area. No theft, no espionage, just a worried staff member reporting potential misconduct. Except there was no misconduct, Helena said. Everything in that journal documents my private thoughts and feelings. Thoughts and feelings I never acted on. There's no violation of company policy, no abuse of power, nothing that rises to the level of actual misconduct. The optics are that I'm a human being who developed feelings for someone while maintaining perfect professionalism, Helena interrupted, her voice sharp. And if Damien wants to crucify me for that, let him try. Because I have evidence of actual crimes, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, securities violations, all committed by Damien Cross, Richard Vance, and, she paused, several members of my own board who thought they could betray me and get away with it. Marcus's face went pale. Helena, you need to think very carefully about what you're doing. I have thought about it, and here's what I've decided. Helena stood, crossing her arms. You have until 5 p.m. today to resign from the board. If you do, I won't pursue criminal charges. I'll let the SEC investigation run its course, and you can deal with the consequences on your own. But if you're still on my board at 5:01 p.m., I will personally ensure that you spend the next decade fighting federal prosecutors. You can't prove I was involved in anything illegal. Helena pulled up a file on her computer and turned the screen toward Marcus. These are wire transfers from Meridian Holdings to a personal account in your name. $30,000 over 6 months. Christina Park traced them through 4 different shell companies, but they all lead back to you. Care to explain what services you were providing to Meridian that were worth that kind of money? Marcus stared at the screen, and Helena watched the fight drain out of him. I didn't know what Damien was planning, he said, his voice hollow. I thought I was just providing market analysis. Consulting work. I didn't know about the fraud. Then you should have asked more questions before taking money from a convicted criminal. Helena's voice was ice. 5 p.m., Marcus, make your choice. Marcus left without another word, and the moment the door closed behind him, Helena's knees almost buckled. Ethan was there immediately, his hand on her elbow, steadying her. That was incredible, he said. That was terrifying. Helena's hands were shaking. He had the journal, Ethan. Damien actually stole my journal, and we're going to use that against him. Corporate espionage, theft of private property, that's serious criminal exposure. Ethan guided her to the couch, sitting beside her. Helena, you just backed down a board member using nothing but evidence and confidence. You were brilliant. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal, but you held it together when it mattered. He squeezed her hand. Marcus will resign, and when he does, Robert Price will probably follow. That leaves Damien without his inside support. Helena took a shaky breath. The press conference tomorrow. We need to address the journal. Get ahead of the story before Damien can spin it. Agreed. We tell the truth. You kept a private journal documenting personal feelings. Those feelings never translated into inappropriate conduct, and the journal was stolen as part of a criminal conspiracy to blackmail you. Ethan's expression was fierce. Anyone who tries to shame you for being human can answer to me. That's not how corporate America works. Then maybe it's time corporate America got a reality check. He turned to face her fully. Helena, you've spent your entire career being perfect, being untouchable, playing by rules designed to keep women like you quiet and compliant. But you know what? The rules don't matter anymore. Because we have the evidence, we have the truth, and we're not backing down. Helena studied his face, the determination in his eyes, the set of his jaw, and felt something shift in her chest. For years, she'd thought strength meant standing alone, never showing weakness, never admitting need. But maybe real strength was letting someone stand with you. Okay, she said softly. We do this together. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Helena met with her legal team, who confirmed that the evidence Christina had gathered was sufficient to support both civil and criminal charges. She called an emergency board meeting for that evening, knowing she needed to address the conspiracy before tomorrow's press conference. By 6 p.m., Helena stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces of the men and women she'd trusted to help guide her company. Marcus Chen's seat was empty. He'd submitted his resignation at 4:47 p.m. Robert Price sat at the far end of the table, his expression carefully neutral. I'm sure you're all wondering why I called this meeting, Helena began. Over the weekend, I became aware of a coordinated attempt to seize control of Ward Industries through fraudulent means. Some of you may have heard rumors about Damien Cross's hostile takeover bid. What you don't know is that this bid is backed by a sophisticated fraud scheme involving multiple shell companies, falsified financial documents, and insider trading. She pulled up Christina's report on the screen behind her, letting the board members absorb the charts and transaction records. 2 of our board members were complicit in this scheme, Helena continued. Marcus Chen has already resigned. Robert, would you like to save us all some time and do the same? Robert Price stood slowly. I think you're making a serious mistake, Helena. Damien Cross is offering a generous buyout for shareholders. Fighting him is going to cost this company millions in legal fees and damage our stock price. If you cared about the shareholders instead of your own ego, the shareholders will be fine once the SEC finishes prosecuting the people who tried to defraud them, Helena interrupted. But since you brought up caring, let me ask you something, Robert. How much did Damien pay you to short our stock before the takeover announcement? Because that's what you did, isn't it? You knew the announcement would tank our stock price, so you bet against your own company for personal profit. Robert's face flushed. I want my lawyer present before I answer any more questions. Then get your lawyer, but I want your resignation on my desk by midnight, or I'm handing everything I have to the federal prosecutor tomorrow morning. Helena's voice was steel. Get out of my boardroom. Robert grabbed his briefcase and left, and Helena turned to face the remaining board members. I know some of you are questioning my leadership right now, she said. Wondering if fighting Damien is the right call. Wondering if it would be easier to just accept a buyout and move on. But I need you to understand something. Ward Industries isn't just a company. It's proof that you can build something meaningful from nothing if you're willing to work hard enough. It's proof that integrity matters, that doing things the right way matters. She paused, letting her words settle. Damien Cross wants to destroy that. He wants to strip this company for parts and sell off everything we've built. And I will not let that happen. So I'm asking you to trust me. Trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust that we can win this fight. Her voice softened slightly. And if you can't trust me, then resign tonight. Because tomorrow, I'm going public with everything. And I need to know the people standing beside me are truly with me. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Jennifer Walsh, the board member who'd always been skeptical of Helena's aggressive expansion strategy, spoke up. What do you need from us? Helena felt relief flood through her. I need you to stand united. When the media starts asking questions, when shareholders get nervous, when Damien tries to paint this as a desperate CEO clinging to power, I need you to tell them the truth, that this board supports the current leadership, that we're cooperating fully with federal investigators, that Ward Industries will not be intimidated by criminals. One by one, the remaining board members nodded their agreement. When Helena finally left the boardroom 3 hours later, she found Ethan waiting in her office. He'd ordered dinner, Thai food again, and set it up on her conference table along with a bottle of wine. How'd it go? He asked. Better than expected. We lost Marcus and Robert, but the rest of the board is standing with me. Helena collapsed into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Tomorrow's going to be hell. Tomorrow's going to be victory. Ethan poured her a glass of wine. But tonight, you need to eat and rest. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. I'm a father. Close enough. He pushed a container of pad thai toward her. Eat. Helena picked up her chopsticks, marveling at how natural this felt. How easy. She'd spent so many late nights alone in this office, eating takeout at her desk, the silence broken only by the hum of her computer. But now Ethan was here, and the silence felt comfortable instead of oppressive. Tell me about Maya's soccer game, she said. When is it? Saturday at 10. Purple Panthers versus Blue Dolphins. Ethan smiled. She's been talking about you nonstop. Wants to know if you like Dolphins or Panthers better. Panthers, obviously. That's her team. That's what I told her. He paused. You know you don't have to come if this week gets too crazy. She'll understand. I'll be there, Helena said firmly. I made a promise. And besides, she met his eyes. I want to be there. I want to be part of this. Part of your lives. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. You are. You already are. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, and when Ethan finally stood to leave, Helena found herself not wanting him to go. Stay, she said quietly. Ethan turned back to her. Helena, not like that, She struggled to find the words. I don't want to be alone tonight, and I know that's selfish, but it's not selfish. Ethan crossed back to her, pulling her into his arms. I'll stay as long as you need me. They ended up on the couch in her office. Helena curled against Ethan's side, his arm around her shoulders. The city lights glittered beyond the windows, and Helena felt safer than she had in weeks. Tell me something true, she said softly. Something you've never told anyone. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I'm terrified I'm failing Maya, that I'm so focused on making sure she has everything she needs that I'm forgetting to just enjoy being her dad. That one day she'll grow up and realize I was just going through the motions. Helena lifted her head to look at him. That's not true. The way she looks at you, there's so much love there, so much trust. You're not failing her. How can you be sure? Because she asked me to make sure you're okay. She worries about you the same way you worry about her. That's not something you get from a parent who's just going through the motions. That's real connection. Helena traced patterns on his chest. You're a good father, Ethan. Maybe the best I've ever seen. His arm tightened around her. Your turn. Tell me something true. Helena thought about all the things she could say, all the fears and insecurities she'd buried over the years. But only one truth felt important enough to share right now. I used to think love was a weakness, she said, something that made you vulnerable, something that gave other people power over you, so I avoided it. Built walls so high that nothing could get through, and I was safe, but I was also... Her voice cracked. I was so lonely, so tired of pretending I didn't need anyone. And then you walked into my life, and suddenly all those walls felt like prison bars instead of protection. Helena, let me finish. She sat up, turning to face him. I'm still scared. Terrified, actually. Because loving you means you can hurt me in ways no corporate rival ever could. But I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. Choosing us. Because being safe and alone isn't living. It's just existing. And I'm done existing. Ethan cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I love you. I need you to know that. This isn't just attraction or convenience or me being grateful you're helping with Damien. I love you. The woman who writes in journals about wanting simple things, the CEO who fights for what's right, all of it. I love you too, Helena whispered. I've loved you for so long I can't remember what it felt like before. They kissed then, slow and deep, and Helena felt something unlock in her chest, something that had been closed off for years, protecting her heart from exactly this kind of vulnerability. But she was done protecting herself from the things that mattered. When they finally pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Tomorrow's going to change everything. I know. We're going to win. I know that too. Helena smiled despite the nerves churning in her stomach. Because I have you, and apparently that makes me unstoppable. Damn right it does. They spent the rest of the night on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. Maya's upcoming birthday, Helena's plans for company expansion, the trip to Italy they both wanted to take someday. Small dreams and big ones, all tangled together in a way that made the future feel less terrifying and more like a promise. When dawn finally broke over the city, Helena stood at the window watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Ready? He asked. No, Helena admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. That's my girl. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. By 9:30, the room was packed with journalists from every major financial outlet, cameras set up, questions already being shouted before Helena even walked in. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a navy suit that projected authority without aggression, her hair pulled back in a simple bun, minimal jewelry. She looked every inch the CEO, but more importantly, she looked like someone who had nothing to hide. Ethan stood off to the side with her legal team, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. Their eyes met briefly, and Helena drew strength from the confidence she saw there. At exactly 10 a.m., Helena stepped up to the podium. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice clear and steady. I'm here today to address a serious matter involving Ward Industries and a coordinated criminal conspiracy to defraud our shareholders and seize control of this company through illegal means. She pulled up Christina's findings on the screen behind her, walking the journalist through the evidence methodically. Shell companies, falsified documents, insider trading, securities fraud. With each revelation, she watched the reporters lean forward, their questions multiplying. I have already provided all of this evidence to the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Helena continued. As of this morning, federal prosecutors have opened criminal investigations into Damien Cross, Richard Vance, and several co-conspirators. Warrants have been issued. Arrests are expected imminently. The room erupted in shouted questions, but Helena held up her hand. I also want to address another matter, she said, her heart pounding. As part of this conspiracy, my private office was burglarized and personal property was stolen. Specifically, a private journal containing personal thoughts and reflections. The thieves intended to use this journal to blackmail me into stepping down quietly. She paused, letting that sink in. I'm not stepping down. and I'm not ashamed of anything in that journal. Yes, I documented personal feelings. Yes, some of those feelings concerned people in my professional life. But documenting feelings is not misconduct. Having emotions is not a crime, and I refuse to be shamed for being human. A reporter in the front row raised her hand. Miss Ward, can you confirm that the journal contained romantic feelings toward your executive assistant? Helena met the reporter's eyes steadily. Yes, it did. And those feelings were never acted upon inappropriately. I maintained absolute professionalism for 3 years. The only misconduct in this situation is the theft of my private property and the attempt to use it as blackmail. Are you in a relationship with Ethan Cole now? Yes, I am. As of this weekend, Ethan and I have begun a personal relationship. We have disclosed this relationship to the board, to HR, and to our legal team. All appropriate protocols are being followed. Helena's voice was firm. And I'm stating this publicly because I will not allow criminals to control the narrative about my personal life. Ethan Cole is the best executive assistant I've ever had, and more importantly, he's a good man, a great father, someone I'm proud to have in my life, both professionally and personally. She could see Ethan at the side of the room, and the expression on his face made her chest tight. Any other questions? Helena asked. The questions came rapid fire for the next 30 minutes. Helena answered each one with precision, never wavering, never backing down. She was Helena Ward, the woman who'd built a billion-dollar empire from nothing, and she wasn't about to let anyone make her feel small for the crime of being human. When the press conference finally ended, Helena walked off the platform to find Ethan waiting. That was perfect, he said quietly. That was terrifying. You didn't show it. He wanted to pull her into his arms, but settled for squeezing her hand briefly. Come on, let's get out of here before round 2 starts. They made it back to Helena's office just as her phone started ringing. Board members calling to offer support, shareholders wanting reassurance, media outlets requesting follow-up interviews. Helena handled each call with the same steady professionalism, but Ethan could see the exhaustion starting to show around her eyes. By 3 p.m., her assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Ward, there's a Detective Morrison here to see you. He says it's regarding the theft of your personal property. Helena and Ethan exchanged glances. Send him in. Detective Morrison was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much. He shook Helena's hand firmly. Ms. Ward, I'm with the Corporate Crimes Division. I watched your press conference this morning. Took a lot of courage to do what you did. Thank you, Detective. How can I help you? I'm here because we arrested Damian Cross about an hour ago. He's being charged with securities fraud, conspiracy, and theft. During the arrest, we recovered several items from his office, including this. He pulled out an evidence bag containing Helena's journal. Helena's breath caught. That's mine. We'll need to hold on to it as evidence for now, but you'll get it back once the trial's over. Detective Morrison paused. Cross is claiming he received the journal from an anonymous source, but we found his fingerprints on multiple pages, and security footage from this building shows him entering through a service entrance last Friday night using what appears to be a stolen access card. We've got him cold on the theft charge alone. And the fraud charges? Ethan asked. Solid. The SEC's evidence is ironclad. He's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. The detective looked at Helena. You did the right thing, Ms. Ward, not just for your company, but for every other person Cross might have targeted down the line. After the detective left, Helena sank into her chair, the weight of the day finally catching up with her. It's over, she said quietly. Damian's arrested. The fraud scheme is exposed. The board is intact. It's actually over. The legal battle's just beginning, Ethan reminded her gently. Trials, depositions, media scrutiny. This is going to drag on for months, I know. But the worst part is over. The fear, the uncertainty, the feeling like I had to face this alone. She looked up at him. I didn't face it alone. I had you. Ethan moved around the desk and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her. You'll always have me, for as long as you want me. Forever, then, Helena said against his chest. I'm thinking forever. Forever works for me. They stood like that for a long time, two people who'd found each other against all odds, holding tight to something real in a world that often felt anything but. And for the first time in years, Helena felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The rest of the week unfolded in a controlled explosion of media coverage, legal maneuvering, and corporate damage control. Helena's phone never stopped ringing. Shareholders demanded emergency meetings. Competitors circled like sharks, sensing opportunity in the chaos. 3 separate news outlets requested exclusive interviews, and Helena's legal team fielded dozens of calls from prosecutors building their case against Damian Cross and his co-conspirators. Through it all, Ethan was there. Not just as her assistant, but as her partner in every sense of the word. He screened calls, managed her schedule, ran interference with the board, and somehow still found time to make sure she ate lunch and didn't work past midnight. It was a delicate balance, maintaining their professional relationship in public while navigating this new intimacy in private. But they were learning. By Thursday afternoon, Helena stood in front of an emergency shareholder meeting, facing a room full of anxious investors who wanted answers. Some wanted reassurance that their investments were safe. Others wanted blood. Someone to blame for the chaos that had sent Ward Industries stock on a volatile roller coaster over the past week. The immediate threat to this company has been neutralized, Helena said, her voice carrying across the crowded conference room. Damian Cross is in federal custody. Richard Vance has been arrested. The co-conspirators on our board have resigned and are cooperating with investigators. Ward Industries is not, and has never been, in danger of a legitimate takeover. But our stock price is down 18% since Monday, a shareholder called out from the middle of the room. How is that not danger? Stock volatility is a natural response to uncertainty, but let me be clear about the fundamentals. Helena pulled up a presentation on the screen behind her. Our revenue is up 22% year over year. Our profit margins are the strongest they've been in 5 years. We have 3 major contracts in the pipeline worth over $2 billion combined. The only thing that changed this week is that we exposed a criminal conspiracy before it could do real damage. What about your personal conduct? Another shareholder demanded. The journal that was stolen, you admitted to having romantic feelings for an employee. How do we know that didn't cloud your judgment? How do we know this whole situation isn't the result of personal drama? Helena had been expecting this question, had rehearsed her answer with Ethan and her legal team, but standing here now, facing the accusation directly, she felt anger rise up in her chest, hot and sharp and righteous. Let me tell you something about judgment, she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. For 3 years, I maintained absolute professionalism despite personal feelings. I never acted inappropriately, never abused my position, never allowed my emotions to compromise my decision-making. And you want to question my judgment? She paused, letting the silence stretch. The people whose judgment you should question are the ones who tried to steal this company through fraud, the ones who took bribes to betray their fiduciary duties, the ones who thought they could blackmail a CEO with stolen property and get away with it. She could see some shareholders nodding, but others still looked skeptical. I'm not going to apologize for being human, Helena continued. I'm not going to pretend that running a billion-dollar company means I'm not allowed to have feelings. What I will tell you is this. The same dedication that built Ward Industries from nothing is the dedication I bring to every aspect of my life. When I commit to something, whether it's a business strategy or a personal relationship, I do it completely, with integrity, with honesty, with the kind of loyalty that doesn't waver when things get difficult. She locked eyes with the shareholder who'd asked the question. So if you're looking for someone to blame for this mess, blame the criminals who created it, not the CEO who stopped them. The room erupted in a mix of applause and heated discussion. Helena fielded questions for another hour, her answers sharp and uncompromising. By the time the meeting ended, she'd turned most of the room. Not all, there would always be detractors, but enough to stabilize the immediate panic. Ethan was waiting outside the conference room when she emerged, and the relief on his face made her chest tight. You were incredible in there, he said quietly. I was angry, Helena admitted, tired of defending myself for having emotions. Good. You should be angry. What they're putting you through is ridiculous. He handed her a bottle of water. Drink this. Then we need to prep for the SEC deposition tomorrow. Helena groaned. Can't we just skip to the part where this is all over? Where's the fun in that? Ethan smiled, but Helena could see the worry in his eyes. The depositions were going to be brutal. Hours of questions, every decision scrutinized, every email and memo analyzed for evidence of wrongdoing. It was necessary to build the case against Damien and his accomplices, but it was also exhausting. "Come home with me tonight," Ethan said suddenly. "Maya's been asking about you all week. She wants to show you the goal she scored at practice yesterday, and I could use the company." Helena's first instinct was to say no. She had work to do, emails to answer, strategies to plan. But then she looked at Ethan's face and realized something important. Work would always be there. But moments with the people she loved, those were finite, precious. "Okay," she said. "Let me grab my laptop and I'll follow you." "Leave the laptop," Ethan said firmly. "Tonight is about being present, not working." Helena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He was right. She'd spent too many years choosing work over everything else. It was time to choose differently. They picked up Maya from Ethan's mother's house, and the moment the little girl saw Helena, her face lit up with a smile that made Helena's heart squeeze. "Helena, you came!" Maya threw her arms around Helena's waist in an enthusiastic hug. "Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come." "I promised, didn't I?" Helena said, hugging her back carefully. "I keep my promises." "I scored a goal at practice." Maya pulled back, bouncing on her toes. "Coach said it was the best goal all week. I used the technique Daddy taught me. You know, where you fake left and then go right, and the goalie totally fell for it." "That's amazing," Helena said, and meant it. She'd never understood the appeal of children's sports before. But seeing Maya's excitement, the pure joy on her face, it was infectious. The drive back to Ethan's apartment was filled with Maya's chatter about soccer, her best friend Sophia's upcoming birthday party, and a book she was reading about dragons. Helena found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did, the tension of the week slowly draining away as she listened to the easy rhythm of father and daughter. Back at the apartment, Ethan started dinner while Maya dragged Helena to her room to show her the trophy shelf, a collection of participation medals, a few first-place ribbons, and photos from various games and school events. "This is my favorite," Maya said, pointing to a photo of her and Ethan at the beach. Ethan was holding her on his shoulders, both of them laughing, the sunset golden behind them. "We went for my 7th birthday. Daddy let me eat ice cream for breakfast." "Just that one time," Ethan called from the kitchen. "And we never speak of it again." Maya giggled. "He says that, but I know he'll do it again for my 9th birthday. He's a softie." Helena smiled. "Your dad is pretty special." "I know." Maya's expression turned serious. "Are you his girlfriend now? Like, for real?" Helena's breath caught. She and Ethan had talked about how to explain their relationship to Maya, but they decided to wait until things were more settled. Apparently, Maya had her own timeline. "Yes," Helena said carefully, "if that's okay with you." Maya studied her with the intense focus only children could manage. "Do you make him happy?" "I try to." "And does he make you happy?" "Very much." "Okay then." Maya nodded, satisfied. "But if you ever make him cry, I'll be really mad at you, because he cries sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep, and I don't like it." Helena's throat tightened. The image of Ethan crying alone in the dark, trying to shield his daughter from his pain, it broke something open in her chest. "I promise I will do everything I can to make him smile, not cry," Helena said softly. "Good." Maya's serious expression melted back into her usual sunny demeanor. "Now come see my rock collection. I have 47 rocks, and each one is special." Dinner was simple: spaghetti with marinara sauce, garlic bread, and a salad that Maya picked at while making faces. But sitting around Ethan's small kitchen table, listening to Maya tell elaborate stories about her rocks, and Ethan teasing her about her dramatic flair, Helena felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Contentment. This was what she'd been writing about in her journal. This warmth, this sense of belonging, this feeling that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. After dinner, Maya insisted on teaching Helena how to play her favorite card game, a complicated affair involving dragons, knights, and rules that seemed to change based on Maya's whims. Helena lost spectacularly 3 times in a row, and each time, Maya's triumphant crow of victory made her laugh harder. "You're really bad at this," Maya informed her cheerfully. "I'm beginning to realize that," Helena said. "It's okay. Daddy's bad at it too. But you're fun to play with because you don't let me win on purpose. I hate when grown-ups do that." When Maya's bedtime arrived, she surprised Helena by asking her to help with the bedtime routine. "Will you read with us?" Maya asked, holding up a book about a girl who discovered she was secretly a princess. "Daddy and I take turns reading pages, and you could read some too." Helena glanced at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to," Helena said. They settled on Maya's bed, Maya in the middle, Ethan on one side, Helena on the other, and took turns reading. Helena hadn't read a children's book in decades, but she found herself getting invested in the story, doing different voices for the characters, making Maya giggle at her exaggerated princess accent. When the chapter ended, Maya yawned and snuggled deeper into her pillows. "That was fun," she said sleepily. "Can Helena come to my soccer game on Saturday?" "If she wants to," Ethan said, smoothing Maya's hair back from her forehead. "I'll be there," Helena promised. "With a purple shirt. Purple's my team color." "I'll find a purple shirt." "Okay, good." Maya's eyes drifted closed. "Night, Daddy. Night, Helena." "Good night, sweetheart," Ethan said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Good night, Maya," Helena added softly. They tiptoed out of the room, leaving the door cracked open just enough to let the hallway light spill in. In the living room, Helena collapsed onto the couch, emotionally exhausted in the best possible way. "She's wonderful," Helena said. "Exhausting, but wonderful." "That's 8-year-olds for you." Ethan sat beside her, pulling her against his side. "Thank you for tonight, for being here. I know you had a million other things you could have been doing." "There's nowhere else I wanted to be." Helena tilted her head to look at him. "She asked if I make you happy. If you make me happy." "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you make me very happy." Helena paused. "She also said if I make you cry, she'll be mad at me." Ethan's expression flickered with something that looked like embarrassment. "She told you that? She said you cry sometimes when you think she's asleep." "Ethan." Helena turned to face him fully. "Talk to me. What's going on?" He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was trying to find the right words. Finally, he sighed. "Sometimes the weight of everything just hits me, you know? Being a single parent, trying to give Maya everything she needs, worrying that I'm screwing it all up." He looked at her, his eyes raw. "And yeah, sometimes I cry about it. Usually late at night when the apartment's quiet and I'm looking at her asleep and thinking about all the ways I'm failing her." "You're not failing her," Helena said fiercely. "She's happy. She's confident. She knows she's loved. That's not failure, Ethan. That's success." "What about all the things I can't give her? Private schools, vacations to Europe, a mother who actually wanted to be there." His voice cracked on the last words. "She deserves so much more than what I can provide." Helena took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "She deserves a father who loves her unconditionally. Who shows up for every soccer game. Who reads her bedtime stories and lets her eat ice cream for breakfast on her birthday. Who teaches her that integrity and kindness matter more than money or status. And she has that. She has you. That's not just enough, it's everything." Ethan's eyes were wet, and Helena could see him fighting to hold back tears. "I spent 3 years watching you be perfect," she continued. "Watching you balance being an incredible father and an amazing professional. And I thought, if I could be half as brave as Ethan Cole, half as committed to the people I love, I'd be doing okay. You're not failing anyone. You're setting an impossible standard the rest of us are trying to live up to." A tear slipped down Ethan's cheek, and Helena brushed it away with her thumb. "I love you," he said, his voice rough. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I love you too, and you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Let me help. Let me be part of this, part of your and Maya's life in a real way." Helena paused. "If you want that." "I want that more than anything." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "But I need you to understand what you're signing up for. Single dad, demanding kid, complicated ex-wife situation, even though she's not involved. It's messy, it's hard, and there are going to be days when you regret." "Stop!" Helena pulled back to look at him. "I've spent my entire adult life avoiding mess, avoiding anything that felt complicated or risky. And you know what? I was miserable. So if loving you means mess, I'll take it. I'll take all of it." They kissed then, slow and deep, and Helena felt something settle in her chest. This was real. This was happening, and she wasn't running from it. When they finally broke apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "The deposition tomorrow. Are you ready?" "No, but I'll get through it." Helena sighed. The prosecutor said it could take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. They want to establish the timeline of when I became aware of the fraud, what steps I took, whether there was any indication I was being targeted before Damien made his move. And they'll ask about the journal. Probably. They need to establish chain of custody, prove it was stolen and when. Helena's stomach twisted at the thought of strangers reading her private words, analyzing her feelings like evidence in a trial. I hate that it's become this public thing, that something so personal is now part of a federal investigation. I hate it too, but we'll get through it. Ethan squeezed her hand. And when it's over, when Damien's convicted and this whole nightmare is behind us, we're going to take a vacation, somewhere warm, just the three of us. The three of us, Helena repeated, and the phrase made her heart swell. I like the sound of that. Me too. Helena stayed until nearly midnight, talking with Ethan about everything from deposition strategy to Maya's upcoming birthday party plans. When she finally drove home to her penthouse, the empty space didn't feel quite so oppressive, because now she had somewhere else she belonged, someone waiting for her to come back. The SEC deposition the next morning was every bit as grueling as Helena had anticipated. Federal prosecutors grilled her for 6 hours straight, dissecting every email, every meeting, every decision she'd made over the past year. They asked about the journal repeatedly, when she'd started keeping it, what motivated the entries, whether she'd ever shared its contents with anyone. Never, Helena said for the third time. It was private, personal. I kept it in my desk drawer because I never imagined anyone would violate my office that way. And the entries about Mr. Cole, the prosecutor said, his tone neutral. Can you explain the nature of those entries? Helena took a breath, reminding herself that honesty was the only path through this. I documented my feelings for Ethan Cole over a period of approximately 2 years, feelings I never acted on. The journal was a way to process those emotions privately, to ensure they didn't compromise my professional judgment. Did Mr. Cole know about these feelings? Not until the night the journal was stolen. He discovered the theft first and read enough to understand what had been taken. And that's when your romantic relationship began? Yes. When we both realized the feelings were mutual, we chose to pursue a relationship while following all appropriate HR protocols. The prosecutor made notes, his expression unreadable. Ms. Ward, I need to ask you directly. Did your personal feelings for Mr. Cole ever influence your business decisions? Did you give him preferential treatment, access to confidential information, or opportunities he wouldn't have otherwise received? No. Ethan earned every opportunity through skill and hard work. If anything, I was harder on him than other employees because I was overcompensating, trying to ensure no one could accuse me of favoritism. Helena met the prosecutor's eyes steadily. My feelings didn't make me less professional. They made me more careful, more deliberate, more committed to maintaining appropriate boundaries. The questions continued, circling back to the same themes from different angles. By the time the deposition ended, Helena was exhausted, her throat dry from talking, her head pounding from the fluorescent lights. Ethan was waiting outside the conference room, and the sight of him made Helena's eyes sting with tears she'd been holding back for hours. Come here, he said quietly, and she walked into his arms, letting him hold her while she shook with delayed reaction. That was awful, she said against his chest. I know, but you did it. It's over. For now. They said they might need follow-up depositions depending on what else they uncover. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. Ethan pulled back to look at her. Right now, we're going to get you some food, and then you're going to sleep for 12 hours straight. I can't. I have nothing that can't wait until Monday. His voice was firm. Helena, you've been running on adrenaline and coffee for a week. Your body needs rest. Let me take care of you. Helena wanted to argue, but the truth was she was too tired to fight. Okay, but only if you promise to wake me up by 6 a.m. tomorrow. I need to find a purple shirt for Maya's game. Ethan's smile was soft and full of affection. Deal. That night, Helena slept in Ethan's guest room again, and when she woke up Saturday morning, the smell of pancakes was drifting through the apartment. Real pancakes this time, not the hockey pucks from earlier in the week. She found Ethan and Maya in the kitchen, both wearing Purple Panthers jerseys, working together to flip pancakes while arguing good-naturedly about whether chocolate chips improved the recipe. "Morning," Helena said from the doorway. Maya whirled around, spatula in hand. "Helena, you're awake. Do you want chocolate chip pancakes or regular?" "Whatever you're having." "Chocolate chip it is." Maya grinned. "Daddy got you a present. Show her, Daddy." Ethan looked slightly embarrassed as he pulled out a bag from behind the counter. "It's nothing fancy, just thought you might need it." Inside the bag was a Purple Panthers t-shirt, adult size, with the team mascot emblazoned across the front. Helena's throat tightened with emotion. "You got me a team shirt." "Can't show up to a Purple Panthers game without proper colors," Ethan said. "Maya helped pick it out." "I made sure it was the right purple," Maya added seriously. "Not lavender, not violet, purple. It's very important." Helena pulled the shirt on over her pajama top, and Maya squealed with delight. "Perfect! Now you're an official Purple Panthers supporter." The soccer game was held at a community field 20 minutes away, and Helena found herself surrounded by other parents, all decked out in team colors, shouting encouragement at their kids. It was chaotic and loud and completely foreign to Helena's usual world of boardrooms and business lunches, and she loved every second of it. Maya played forward, and she was fast, darting around defenders with the kind of fearless determination that made Helena think of herself at that age, before life had taught her to be cautious. When Maya scored her goal in the second half, the entire Purple Panthers sideline erupted in cheers, and Helena found herself jumping up and down with Ethan, screaming congratulations. After the game, they took Maya out for ice cream like Helena had promised. Maya ordered a triple scoop with rainbow sprinkles and proceeded to tell them in exhaustive detail every moment of the game, complete with hand gestures and sound effects. "Did you see when I faked out their defender?" Maya asked around a mouthful of mint chocolate chip. "She totally thought I was going left, but then I went right, just like Daddy taught me." "It was brilliant," Helena said, and meant it. "You were really loud when I scored," Maya observed. "Like really, really loud. I could hear you over everyone." "That's because I was proud of you," Maya beamed. "Can you come to all my games?" Helena glanced at Ethan, who was watching them both with an expression that made her heart skip. "I'll come to as many as I can," she promised. "Good, because you're good luck. We never beat the Blue Dolphins before, and today we won 3-2. On the drive home, Maya fell asleep in the back seat, her face still sticky with ice cream, her jersey grass-stained and perfect. Ethan carried her up to the apartment, and Helena followed, feeling like she'd crossed some invisible threshold into a life she'd never imagined wanting. After Ethan tucked Maya into bed, he and Helena sat on the balcony watching the sun set over the city. It wasn't the same view as from Helena's penthouse, no floor-to-ceiling windows or dramatic skyline. Just a modest balcony overlooking a quiet neighborhood with the sounds of other families drifting up from nearby apartments. But it felt like home in a way Helena's penthouse never had. "Thank you for today," Ethan said quietly, "for coming to the game, for wearing the shirt, for making Maya feel like she matters." "She does matter, so much." Helena leaned against him. "I never thought I'd care about youth soccer, but watching her out there, seeing how happy she was when she scored, I get it now. I get why you do all of this. Because she's worth it." "Because she's worth everything," Helena corrected. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want to be part of this, part of her life. Not just as your girlfriend, but as someone she can count on, someone who shows up." Ethan turned to look at her, his eyes searching her face. "Are you sure? Because once you commit to that, there's no halfway. Kids don't understand casual. They understand all in or not at all." "Then I'm all in." Helena took his hand. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a week, but I've loved you for years, Ethan, and I've wanted a family for longer than I've been willing to admit. So if you're offering me a place in yours, I'm taking it." "I'm offering," Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm offering everything." They sat together as the sky turned from gold to purple to indigo, and Helena felt something she'd spent her whole life chasing finally settle into place. Peace. Not the kind that came from winning battles or closing deals or building empires, but the kind that came from knowing she was exactly where she belonged, with people who loved her not for what she could do, but for who she was. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. 3 months later, Helena stood in a federal courtroom watching Damian Cross receive his sentence. 15 years for securities fraud, conspiracy, and theft. Richard Vance got 12. The co-conspirators who'd turned state's evidence received lighter sentences, but their careers were over, their reputations destroyed beyond repair. The judge's gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom, and Helena felt a weight she'd been carrying for months finally lift from her shoulders. It was over. Truly over. Ethan's hand found hers as they walked out of the courthouse, and the press was waiting on the steps, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. But this time, Helena didn't feel the familiar spike of anxiety. She'd done this before. She knew how to handle it. "Ms. Ward, how do you feel about today's verdict?" a reporter called out. Helena stopped, turning to face the cameras with Ethan beside her. "Justice was served. That's all I have to say about it." "What's next for Ward Industries?" "Growth, innovation, continuing to build the company my team and I have worked so hard to create." Helena's smile was genuine. "We're stronger now than we were before this started, and we're moving forward." "And what about your personal life? Are you and Mr. Cole still together?" Helena glanced at Ethan, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. They'd talked about this moment, about how much to share, about where to draw the line between public and private. "Yes, we are," Helena said simply. "And that's all I'm willing to discuss about my personal life. Thank you." They pushed through the crowd to the waiting car, and once inside with the doors closed, Helena let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding since the trial began. "That wasn't so bad," Ethan said. "That was terrible. I hate press conferences." "You're really good at them, though." He squeezed her hand. "Ready to go home?" Home. The word still made Helena's chest warm. Over the past 3 months, home had shifted from meaning her penthouse to meaning wherever Ethan and Maya were. She still kept the penthouse, used it for late nights when work demanded her attention, but more nights than not, she found herself at Ethan's apartment, sharing dinner at the small kitchen table, reading bedtime stories, falling asleep beside Ethan in his bed that was too small for 2 people, but perfect anyway. "Maya's waiting," Helena said. "We promised her ice cream if the verdict came through today." "Ice cream for breakfast, ice cream for trial verdicts. We're raising a sugar addict." "She's raising us," Helena corrected with a smile. "We're just along for the ride." They picked up Maya from school, and her face lit up when she saw them both. At 8 going on 9, she'd grown taller over the summer, more confident, more herself, and she'd accepted Helena into their family unit with the kind of wholehearted enthusiasm only children could manage. "Did the bad guys go to jail?" Maya asked as she climbed into the back seat. "They did," Ethan confirmed. "Good. They were mean to Helena." Maya buckled her seatbelt with practiced efficiency. "Now can we get ice cream?" They ended up at Maya's favorite ice cream shop, a small family-owned place with homemade flavors and a patio where you could watch the sunset. Maya ordered her usual triple scoop with extra sprinkles, and Helena found herself ordering the same thing, much to Maya's delight. "You're learning," Maya said approvingly. "Extra sprinkles make everything better." "Words to live by," Helena agreed. As they sat in the late afternoon sun, Maya chattering about her upcoming birthday party and Ethan interjecting with dad jokes that made Maya groan and Helena laugh, Helena realized something fundamental had shifted in her life. The trial had been important, necessary, even, but it wasn't the thing that defined her anymore. This was. These moments. This family she'd found when she'd stopped looking for perfection and started accepting reality in all its messy, complicated beauty. "Helena," Maya said suddenly, her expression turning serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you going to marry my dad?" Ethan choked on his ice cream, and Helena felt heat flood her face. They talked about the future in abstract terms, about wanting to build a life together, about commitment. But marriage hadn't been explicitly discussed. Not yet. "Maya," Ethan said, his voice strangled. "That's not... We haven't..." "I'm just asking," Maya said, looking between them with the kind of innocent directness that cut through all adult pretense. "Because Sarah's mom got married last month, and Sarah got to be the flower girl, and I think I'd be a really good flower girl. I'm very responsible." Helena met Ethan's eyes across the table, and she saw the question there. The hope. The the fear. All the things she was feeling reflected back at her. I don't know what the future holds, Helena said carefully. But I do know that I love your dad very much, and I love you very much, and I want to be part of your family for as long as you'll have me. Maya considered this, then nodded. Okay, but if you do get married, I call dibs on being flower girl. Sarah said it's the best job at a wedding. Duly noted, Helena said, fighting a smile. That night, after they'd tucked Maya into bed and settled on the couch with glasses of wine, Ethan brought it up again. I'm sorry about the marriage question, he said. She's been on a wedding kick ever since her friend's mom got remarried. I should have warned you. Don't apologize. She's curious. That's healthy. Helena took a sip of wine, gathering her courage. But since she brought it up, is that something you want? Eventually? Ethan was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her hand. I want everything with you. Marriage, a future, growing old together while Maya rolls her eyes at us and tells her own kids about how embarrassing her parents are. He paused. But I also know we've only been together 3 months, and I don't want to rush you into something you're not ready for. What if I am ready? Helena heard herself say. Not tomorrow, not next week, but someday soon. What if I want the same things you want? Ethan set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. Are you saying... I'm saying I spent 40 years building walls and keeping people out, and I'm done with that. I'm saying I found you and Maya, and you make me happier than any business deal or board victory ever has. I'm saying I want mornings like this morning and evenings like tonight, and every single ordinary, extraordinary moment in between. She took a shaky breath. I'm saying yes. To all of it. To you. To us. To whatever future we want to build together. Ethan kissed her then, slow and deep, and Helena felt tears slip down her cheeks, happy tears, the kind she'd never let herself cry before because happiness always felt too fragile to trust. I love you, Ethan said against her lips. I love you so much. I love you too. Helena pulled back to look at him. So if you were going to ask me something important, hypothetically, what would your timeline be? Ethan's smile was brilliant. Hypothetically? I'd probably want to do it right, plan something special, maybe involve a certain 8-year-old who's very invested in being a flower girl. Hypothetically, that sounds perfect. They spent the rest of the night talking about the future in concrete terms. Where they'd live. Helena's penthouse was too sterile, Ethan's apartment too small, maybe they'd find something in between. How they'd blend their lives while maintaining healthy boundaries. What it would mean for Ethan to transition from being her assistant to being her partner in every sense. I've been thinking about that, actually, Ethan said. The assistant thing. It's getting complicated now that we're together. People at the office are talking. Let them talk. Helena, I'm serious. I don't want anyone to question your judgment or accuse you of nepotism. Maybe it's time I move to a different role or a different company. Helena's chest tightened at the thought of not working with Ethan every day, but she knew he was right. The optics were tricky, and while she didn't care what people thought, she cared about protecting the company they'd both worked so hard to save. What if I promoted you, she said slowly, made you VP of Strategic Operations? It's a role we've needed to fill anyway, and you're more than qualified. We'd still work together, but it would be a lateral relationship instead of me being your boss. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You'd trust me with that kind of responsibility? I trust you with everything, including my company, including my heart, including Maya's happiness. Helena squeezed his hand. You've earned this, Ethan, not because we're together, but because you're brilliant at what you do. I've been wasting your talent for 3 years by having you manage my calendar. It's time to fix that. Then I accept. On one condition. What's that? We tell the board together. Full transparency. No surprises. If we're going to do this, we do it right. Helena smiled. Deal. The board meeting the following week went better than expected. Jennifer Walsh actually smiled when Helena announced Ethan's promotion, and several other board members nodded their approval. The relationship was no longer news. Everyone knew about it, had accepted it, had moved on. What mattered now was results. And Ward Industries had just posted its best quarterly earnings in 5 years. Any objections? Helena asked after laying out the promotion details. Silence. Then it's settled. Ethan Cole is our new VP of Strategic Operations, effective immediately. After the meeting, Jennifer pulled Helena aside. I owe you an apology, she said. When all this started with Damien, I had doubts about your judgment, about whether you could separate personal feelings from business decisions. I was wrong. The way you handled that crisis, the way you protected this company while staying true to yourself, it was masterful. Helena felt her throat tighten. Thank you. That means a lot. For what it's worth, I think Ethan's exactly what this company needs: fresh perspective, strategic thinking, and someone who's not afraid to challenge you when you need it. Jennifer smiled. Hold on to him. Good partnerships are rare. That evening, Helena got home to find Ethan cooking dinner while Maya worked on homework at the kitchen table. Home. The word had fully transformed now. Home wasn't a place. It was these people. This life. I have news, Maya announced without looking up from her math worksheet. I got an A on my history project. That's wonderful. Helena sat down beside her. What was the project? Famous women in business. I did mine on you. Helena's breath caught. You did? Yeah, I talked about how you built Ward Industries from nothing and fought off bad guys who tried to steal it, and how you're really smart but also really nice. Maya finally looked up, grinning. Mrs. Peterson said it was the best project in the class. She wants to know if you'll come talk to our class about being a CEO. Helena glanced at Ethan, who was watching from the stove with a suspiciously wet gleam in his eyes. I'd be honored, Helena said. When does she want me to come? Next Friday. Can you make it? Helena pulled out her phone, checking her calendar. She had a budget meeting that afternoon, but it could be moved. I'll be there. Maya threw her arms around Helena's neck in an impulsive hug. You're the best. Sarah's mom is so jealous that my dad's girlfriend is a CEO. Over Maya's shoulder, Helena caught Ethan's eye, and the expression on his face made her heart skip. Love, pride, gratitude. Everything she'd spent years believing she didn't deserve reflected back at her from the two people who mattered most. The following Friday, Helena stood in front of a classroom of 9-year-olds, fielding questions about what it was like to run a company. The questions ranged from practical to adorable to completely random. How much money do you make? One boy asked. That's private, Helena said diplomatically. Do you have a private jet? Asked another. No, but I travel frequently for business. What's your favorite part about being a CEO? Maya asked, and Helena suspected this question had been planted. Helena thought about it carefully. The best part is building something that matters, creating jobs for people, solving problems, making a difference in the world. She paused. But I've learned that success isn't just about what you build professionally. It's also about the people you love and who love you back. That's the real achievement. After the presentation, Maya's teacher pulled Helena aside. Thank you for doing this. It means a lot to the kids to see successful women in leadership positions, especially successful women who also talk about balance and family. That's an important message. As Helena walked out of the school with Maya's hand in hers, she felt something shift. For years, she'd defined herself by her professional accomplishments. But now she was redefining success to include moments like this: school presentations, soccer games, bedtime stories, the small, ordinary moments that actually made up a life. That weekend, Ethan took Helena and Maya hiking, something Helena had never done in her perfectly curated corporate life. They climbed to a lookout point overlooking the city, and Maya ran ahead to explore while Ethan and Helena sat on a boulder watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. I have something for you, Ethan said quietly. Helena turned to find him pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, and her heart stopped. I know we said we'd wait, Ethan continued, his voice shaking slightly, but I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, and I can't wait anymore. Every day with you feels like a gift I didn't know I was allowed to ask for. Every morning I wake up and remember you chose us, chose me and Maya and this messy, complicated, beautiful life. And I fall in love with you all over again. He opened the box to reveal a simple diamond ring, elegant and perfect. Helena Ward, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that taking a chance on us was the best decision you ever made? Helena's vision blurred with tears, but she didn't try to hide them. Didn't try to maintain the perfect composure she'd relied on for so many years. She just let herself feel everything: joy, fear, hope, love, all of it crashing over her in waves. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, absolutely yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her, and Helena was laughing and crying at the same time while the sunset blazed behind them. Maya, Ethan called out, come here, sweetheart. Maya came running, and when she saw them, saw the ring, saw the tears, saw the happiness, her face split into the biggest smile Helena had ever seen. Does this mean what I think it means? Maya asked. It means Helena is going to be part of our family officially, Ethan said. What do you think about that? Maya launched herself at both of them, wrapping her arms around Helena's waist. I think it's perfect. Can I be the flower girl? Please, please, please. Absolutely, Helena said, hugging her back. You're going to be the best flower girl ever. They stood there together, three people who'd found each other against all odds, and watched the sun sink below the horizon. Helena thought about the journal that had started all of this, the private confessions that had been stolen and weaponized but ultimately led her here, to this moment, to this family. The wedding was small and perfect, held 6 months later in a garden overlooking the ocean. Maya wore a purple dress, Purple Panther's colors naturally, and took her flower girl duties very seriously. Helena's colleagues from Ward Industries mixed with Ethan's family and friends, and the ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When Helena walked down the aisle, she wasn't thinking about optics or what the board would say or how the media would cover it. She was thinking about Ethan's smile, about Maya's excited wave, about the future they were building together. I, Helena Ward, take you, Ethan Cole, to be my partner in all things, she said, when it was her turn for vows. You taught me that strength isn't about standing alone, that love isn't a weakness. It's the bravest thing we can choose. You showed me what home feels like, and I promise to show up for you and for Maya every single day for the rest of my life. Ethan's vows were equally simple and profound, his voice rough with emotion as he promised to love her, challenge her, and never let her forget her own worth. When they kissed, Maya cheered so loudly that everyone laughed, and Helena felt happiness bloom in her chest, so intense it was almost painful. The reception was everything weddings should be. Good food, better company, dancing under string lights as the stars came out. Helena danced with Ethan, with Maya, with board members who'd stood by her during the crisis, with Christina Park who'd helped expose the fraud. Late in the evening, as things were winding down, Jennifer Walsh approached Helena with a glass of champagne. To new beginnings, Jennifer said, raising her glass. To new beginnings, Helena echoed. I meant what I said months ago, about good partnerships being rare. Jennifer smiled. You found yours. In business and in life, that's special. Helena looked across the dance floor to where Ethan was teaching Maya an elaborate dance move, both of them laughing. I know. A year later, Helena stood in a new house. Not her penthouse, not Ethan's apartment, but something they'd chosen together. A house with a yard for Maya to play in, an office where Helena could work from home, and a kitchen big enough for Sunday morning pancake competitions. Maya was 10 now, taller and more confident, already talking about trying out for the competitive soccer league. She still asked impossible questions and told elaborate stories and kept both Helena and Ethan on their toes. Ward Industries had expanded into 3 new markets, and Ethan's strategic vision had been instrumental in every deal. They'd learned how to work together as partners instead of boss and assistant, how to separate professional disagreements from personal feelings, how to build something stronger together than either could have built alone. Helena kept a journal still, but now she wrote about different things. Maya's soccer triumphs, date nights with Ethan, the quiet joy of ordinary evenings at home, dreams that had already come true instead of fantasies she was too afraid to speak out loud. One evening, after tucking Maya into bed, Helena found Ethan on the back porch watching the stars. What are you thinking about? She asked, settling beside him. How different everything is from 3 years ago. He pulled her close. How I used to go home alone every night to an empty apartment and wonder if this was all there was. Work, Maya. Sleep. Repeat. And now I have this. Us. A family that's bigger and messier and better than anything I imagined. Me too, Helena said softly. I used to think success meant building an empire, proving I didn't need anyone, being untouchable. She looked up at the stars, thinking about the woman she'd been. Brilliant and lonely and so afraid of being vulnerable. I was wrong. This is success, coming home to people who love you, being part of something bigger than yourself, having the courage to choose connection over safety. No regrets? Ethan asked. Helena thought about everything she'd risked, her carefully maintained image, her control, the walls that had protected her for so long. She thought about the journal that had exposed her secrets, the trial that had tested her strength, the moments of fear and uncertainty that had threatened to pull her under. And then she thought about everything she'd gained, a partner who challenged and supported her, a daughter who'd chosen to love her without reservation, a life that felt full instead of empty. Mornings filled with laughter and evenings filled with peace and countless ordinary miracles in between. No regrets, she said firmly, not a single one. They sat together in the quiet darkness, two people who'd found each other when neither was looking, and Helena felt gratitude wash over her, for the courage to write those first journal entries, even when it felt dangerous, for Ethan's decision to read them, even when he shouldn't have, for Maya's wholehearted acceptance, for every choice and chance and miracle that had led them here. The light in Maya's room flickered on briefly. She was probably reading under the covers again, which they pretended not to notice, and then went dark. Their daughter, their family, their home. Helena leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her, and they watched the stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new deals to close, new soccer games to attend, new moments to navigate together. But tonight, right now, everything was exactly as it should be. Helena Ward had spent her whole life chasing success, building empires, proving her worth through accomplishments and acquisitions, and the kind of relentless achievement that left no room for anything else. But sitting here under the stars with Ethan's heartbeat steady against her cheek and their daughter sleeping peacefully inside, Helena finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. Not perfection, not control, not the armor of professional success or the safety of emotional distance. Just this, just love, just home. And it was more than enough. It was everything.